Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next hour. Singapore's Prime Minister Lawrence Wong is on a three-day India visit to hold bilateral talks with Prime Minister Modi. Issues of mutual interest on agenda of discussion. Rescuers battle to reach survivors in quake-hit Afghanistan as death toll reaches 1,400. Humanitarian aid pours in. India continues to extend support. Multiple attacks in Pakistan leaves at least 25 dead, including 11 at political rally. Investigation underway. U.S. military sends a clear message to Maduro and Venezuela against drug cartel. Kills 11 people in a strike since recent deployment of warships to the southern Caribbean. And in the US Open, 24-time Grand Slam champion Novak Djokovic sets up a blockbuster semi-final clash against world number 2 Carlos Alcaraz. India's Yuki Bhaumari and his Kiwi partner Michael Venus storms into the quarter-finals. And on to the details now. Singapore's Prime Minister Lawrence Wong has arrived in New Delhi on a three-day visit to India. This is Prime Minister Wong's first visit to India in his capacity as Singapore's Prime Minister. He will hold talks with Prime Minister Modi on Thursday. The two leaders will review the robust and multifaceted cooperation between India and Singapore and set the path for future collaboration. They will also engage on regional and international issues. The Singapore leader will call on President Draupadi Murmu. Well, Singapore is an important partner for India, including in New Delhi's Act East policy. During the visit of Prime Minister Modi to Singapore in September 2024, the bilateral ties were elevated to a comprehensive strategic partnership. The visit coincides with the 60th anniversary of India-Singapore diplomatic relations. Also, close ties between India and Singapore have a history rooted in strong commercial, cultural and people-to-people links across a millennium. Well, Singapore is India's largest trade partner also in ASEAN. It is the leading source of FDI with flows of 14.94 billion USD. About 9,000 Indian companies are registered in Singapore. People of Indian origin constitute 9% of 4.04 million resident population of Singapore. Also, Singapore also hosts 1.64 million foreigners, including Indian citizens. And Indian Finance and Corporate Affairs Minister Nirmala Sitharaman met Singapore's Prime Minister Lawrence Wong in New Delhi on Tuesday. Minister Sitharaman welcomed Singapore's Prime Minister on his first official visit to India as the Prime Minister. In a post on X on Tuesday, the Ministry of Finance stated that the discussion centered on enhancing cooperation in critical areas, including trade and investment, fintech, skill development, sustainability, healthcare and connectivity. Well, both sides also expressed a firm commitment to deepen collaboration, marking a pivotal moment as India and Singapore celebrate 60 years of diplomatic relations. The Singaporean Prime Minister also took to social media platform X and highlighted the meeting with the Union Finance Minister. He also stated that discussions took place on the outcomes of the recently concluded third round of the India-Singapore Ministerial Roundtable held last month. And also, German Federal Minister for Foreign Affairs Johann David Wadephal arrived in New Delhi following his engagement in Bengaluru as part of his two-day official visit to the country. During his day-long stay in New Delhi, the German Foreign Minister will meet the Union Minister of Commerce and Industry, Piyush Goyal. He'll also hold a meeting with his Indian counterpart, Dr. S. Shankar. India's Ministry of External Affairs in a social media post stated that German foreign ministers' engagements in Bengaluru and Delhi will further strengthen the multifaceted India-Germany strategic partnership as the two nations mark 25 years of their completion. And the Prime Minister of Bhutan, Shering Topgay, along with J. Khenpo Throlku Jigme Choidra, the Chief Abbot of Bhutan, will be on an official visit to India for the consecration ceremony of the Royal Bhutan Temple at Rajgir in Bihar on the 4th of September. Following the consecration ceremony, Prime Minister Bhutan will also visit the Sri Ram Temple in Ayodhya. The consecration of the Royal Bhutan Temple at Rajgir is a symbol of the shared spiritual and cultural heritage of Buddhism between India and Bhutan. The land for the temple has been provided by the government of Bihar. Also, the visit of J. Khenpo and Prime Minister Bhutan is in keeping with the tradition of regular high-level exchanges between the two countries, a hallmark of the special partnership. And aimed at enhancing India's semiconductor ecosystem, Prime Minister Narendra Modi to participate also in the second day of Semicon India 2025 conference inaugurated by him on Tuesday. The three-day conference, witnessing participants from over 48 countries, over 150 speakers, including over 50 global leaders and more than 350 exhibitors. The initiative focused on advancing a robust, resilient and sustainable semiconductor ecosystem in India. It features sessions on the progress of the Semicon India program, semiconductor fab and advanced packaging projects, infrastructure readiness, smart manufacturing, innovations in R&D and artificial intelligence, investment opportunities, state-level policy implementation, among others. And early on Tuesday, Prime Minister Modi said that India will hold a significant share in the global semiconductor market, which is expected to surpass $1 trillion in the coming years. DD India's Raghav Kumar Jha looks at the semiconductor ecosystem in India, which can prove to be a catalyst in making the nation self-reliant and globally competitive in this sector.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday received India's first indigenous semiconductor chip at the inauguration of Semicon India 2025 in New Delhi. In his inaugural address, Prime Minister said the global semiconductor market is projected to cross $1 trillion in the coming years. And with the speed at which India is advancing, the country will secure a significant share of this market.
सेमीकंडक्टर्स का ग्लोबल मार्केट $600 बिलियन तक पहुंच रहा है और अगले कुछ साल में ये $1 ट्रिलियन को भी पार कर जाएगा। और मुझे विश्वास है भारत जिस तेजी से सेमीकंडक्टर सेक्टर में आगे बढ़ रहा है, इस $1 ट्रिलियन मार्केट शेयर में एक अहम हिस्सा भारत का रहने वाला है।
Let us have a quick look at the semiconductor program in India and its share in the global market. Semicon India program was launched in the country in 2021. By 2023, India's first semiconductor plant had been approved. In 2024, several other plants received approval, and in 2025, 5 additional projects were cleared. Now India has 10 approved semiconductor projects across 6 states involving an investment of over $18 billion. Global semiconductor market has already reached $600 billion, and in the coming years, it is expected to surpass $1 trillion. India contributes 20% of the world's semiconductor design talent. As per industry estimates, the size of the Indian semiconductor market in 24-25 was $45 to $50 billion. The market in India is expected to reach $100 to $110 billion by 2030. Industry leaders have hailed India's growing role and said that India is laying the foundation of a resilient semiconductor ecosystem.
With the progress India have made in the last few years, entering semiconductor and becoming a strong country for semiconductor manufacturing makes a lot of sense.
So this is excellent steps. Progress is being made, evidence is seen, and now the future is for us to take.
Customers are here in India. We want to be able to support them, to support the growth trajectory that we have here in India, the Modi's law of exponential growth. We want to be here to be able to support that.
The speed with which India is moving ahead in this sector, developing semiconductor parks across the country with access to a skilled worker pool. The day seems not far away when, in the words of Prime Minister Modi, the world will say, designed in India, made in India, and trusted by the world. Raghav Kumar Jha reports for DD India.
Well, the 14th edition of the India-Thailand Joint Military Exercise Med 314 commenced with a grand opening ceremony at Joint Training Node in Meghalaya. The ongoing bilateral exercise is part of military-to-military exchange program between the two countries and aims to enhance cooperation, interoperability and mutual understanding between the Indian Army and Royal Thai Army. The 13th edition of the exercise was held in Thailand. The joint exercise will focus on company-level counter-terrorist operations in semi-urban terrain under Chapter 7 of the United Nations Charter. The two-week program includes tactical drills, joint planning, special arms skills, physical fitness and raiding operations. The exercise will culminate with a 48-hour validation exercise simulating realistic operational scenarios. And the ships of the first training squadron of the Indian Navy comprising INS Tir, INS Shardul and CGS Sarthi reached Port Victoria, Seychelles on Tuesday. Their arrival at port was marked with a ceremonial welcome by the Seychelles Defence Force Band, emphasizing strong maritime ties between the two nations. INS is presently on long-range training deployment in the southwest Indian Ocean region. The deployment of INS to Seychelles is the third port call of Indian Navy ships to Seychelles in 2025. This highlights the Indian Navy's robust bilateral engagement and maritime partnership aligned with the broader vision of Mahasagar in IOR. And the Air Force proved to be a game-changer for India during operations in the devastating terrorist camps deep inside Pakistan with precision and lethality. Our correspondent Nandita Daga spoke to the man who was at the helm of affairs at one of our frontline Air Force commands.
We are with Air Marshal Nagesh Kapoor. He is the Air Officer in charge commanding of the Southwestern Air Force Command.
When we are in our own domain and prosecuting an operation, we remain somehow aloof from the actual goings on in the industry. And so from here in the next 2 days, I want to understand, I want to take forward what exactly is happening in our industrial domain so as to make sure that our armed forces are better prepared, they are better equipped to handle another such contingency. As you yourself said, Operation Sindoor is ongoing, so we should be better prepared and to tackle any eventuality that comes immediately after this. So that is something that I would like to hear from in this seminar, and that is something that I would like to learn.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. US judge blocks President Trump from using troops to fight crime in California. Trump dismisses rumors about his ill health, says he was busy over the Labor Day weekend. And what happened at the first day of final stage in Bolsonaro's trial? Stay tuned to know more.
This week on Defence Dynamics, India's tank force takes on the drone challenge. How counter unmanned aerial systems are rewriting armoured warfare. A major milestone in Indian air power, why the induction of Tejas Mark II matters. And on the robotics front, what is Bhairav's robotics Rakshak and why it could redefine battlefield autonomy. This Wednesday at 8 PM only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipak Shukrana. Moving on, United States in its fight against drug cartels carried out military strikes off Venezuela coast on Tuesday. U.S. President Donald Trump in a press meet has confirmed that U.S. forces had attacked a boat carrying drugs to the United States. He further said the United States military killed 11 people in the strike on a vessel allegedly carrying drugs in the southern Caribbean. Trump also posted a video online of an open-topped speedboat carrying a number of people traveling on a body of water before it exploded in a ball of flames.
Just over the last few minutes, literally shot out a boat, a drug-carrying boat, a lot of drugs in that boat. We have a lot of drugs pouring into our country, coming in for a long time, and we just, these came out of Venezuela. And coming out very heavily from Venezuela. A lot of things are coming out of Venezuela, so we took it out.
Well, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters before leaving to Mexico that President Trump will use full power to eradicate drug cartels.
The president was very clear, and that is we destroyed a drug boat that left Venezuela, operated by a designated narco-terrorist organization, which is what these are. And he's been clear that the days of acting with impunity and having an engine shot down or a couple drugs grabbed off a boat, those days are over. Now we are going to wage combat against drug cartels that are flooding American streets and killing Americans.
Well, a federal appeals court ruled that U.S. President Donald Trump unlawfully invoked the Alien Enemies Act to deport Venezuelans he alleged were part of a criminal gang. In a 2-1 decision, a 3-judge panel of the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals issued a preliminary injunction that blocked the Trump administration from removing a group of Venezuelans under the seldom-used 18th century law. The act gives the government expansive powers to detain and deport citizens of hostile foreign nations, but only in times of war or during an invasion of predatory incursion. And U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Tuesday opened a visit to Mexico, which warned against violations of its sovereignty. Rubio is paying the highest-ranking visit to the U.S. neighbor since President Donald Trump returned to office in January with an agenda of cracking down on migration and drug cartels. Mexico so far has navigated the treacherous terrain with Trump, with President Claudia Sheinbaum seeking to avoid confrontation. While Sheinbaum will meet Rubio on Wednesday, who was personally welcomed by Mexican Foreign Secretary Juan Raymond de la Fuente. But hours before Rubio's arrival, Sheinbaum said she would draw a line on U.S. military intervention in Mexico. And as Trump threatened to send troops to more U.S. cities, a federal judge blocked U.S. President Donald Trump's administration from using the military to fight crime in California. San Francisco-based U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer found that the Trump administration willfully violated a law known as the Posse Comitatus Act, which sharply limits the use of the military for domestic enforcement by employing troops to control crowds and bolster federal agents during immigration and drug raids. The administration deployed 4,000 National Guard members and 700 active duty U.S. Marines to Los Angeles in June. Tuesday's ruling dealt a setback to Trump's push to broaden the role of the military on U.S. soil, which critics say is a dangerous expansion of executive authority that could spark tensions between troops and ordinary citizens. Well, President Donald Trump said on Tuesday that he plans to send U.S. National Guard troops to fight crime in Chicago, but declined to offer a specific timing of the deployment. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson said over the weekend that Chicago police will not collaborate with any National Guard troops or federal agents if Trump deploys them to the city in coming days, as he's threatened in the past.
I would love to receive calls from governors and mayors saying they need help. We'll help them. We have a lot of people. We have a great force. We have a great military force. You know,
Well, the U.S. House of Representatives committee released a first batch of documents on Tuesday from the investigation into sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The release includes more than 33,000 pages of documents and several videos, with 2 more hours of footage from the night of Epstein's death. The proposal, submitted by Republican U.S. Representative Thomas Massie and Representative Ro Khanna, would require the U.S. Attorney General to publicly release all unclassified Epstein records in possession of the Department of Justice, including the FBI and U.S. Attorney's offices. Massie and Khanna will hold a press conference with Epstein victims today. Well, Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson told reporters that Massie's petition was inartfully drafted because it lacked language that would protect the identities of victims who were sexually abused by Epstein. Johnson also said the petition is moot due to the work of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. And the release of Epstein files comes after demands from lawmakers that all the files be made public. Party leadership looked to end a push by a bipartisan pair of lawmakers to force a vote on the matter. The case of Epstein has caused a political headache for President Trump after many of his supporters embraced a slew of conspiracy theories surrounding Epstein. The committee has subpoenaed the DOJ and Epstein's estate for documents and convicted Epstein accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell for a deposition. And President Donald Trump dismissed reports on social media that he's in ill health, saying he was busy over the Labor Day weekend, giving media interviews and visiting his Virginia golf course. Speculation about his health swirled on the social media platform, with posts citing Trump's lack of a public schedule over the weekend and an interview with Vice President J.D. Vance published on Thursday. On July 17th, White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt said Trump was experiencing swelling in his lower legs and bruising on his right hand after photos showed him with swollen ankles and makeup covering part of his hand. Since then, the White House has played down concerns about Trump's health, saying he's taking the leg issue in stride without detailing how it is being treated. And U.S. President Donald Trump said that he was very disappointed with Russian President Vladimir Putin and added, without elaborating, that his administration was planning to take some actions to bring down deaths in Russia's conflict in Ukraine. Trump also concerned about the growing ties between Russia and China. Trump held a summit with Putin in Alaska in mid-August and subsequently met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and key European and NATO alliance leaders at the White House. Well, following those meetings, Trump said he expected Zelensky and Putin to hold a bilateral meeting before a trilateral meeting that would also include Trump. Zelensky has said Russia was doing everything it could to prevent a meeting between him and Putin, while Russia says the agenda for such a meeting was not ready. And moving on, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz on Tuesday said that Ukraine's allies will continue discussions on possible security guarantees for Kyiv during their video conference meeting this week. Speaking at a joint news conference with Swiss President Karin Keller-Starrett in Berlin, Merz said the leaders of the coalition of the willing will analyze the situation as diplomatic efforts to arrange a meeting between Ukrainian and Russian leaders have so far stalled. The German Chancellor has expressed hope that Switzerland would be able to reduce the exorbitantly high customs tariffs currently placed on them by the United States.
I agreed with President Macron on this last week in Toulon, also in consultation with the British, that we would hold another video conference this week. This will also address further aid for Ukraine. We will try to analyze the situation together. The issue of security guarantees will also play a role. But the most important security guarantee we can give at the moment is sufficient support for the Ukrainian army in its efforts to defend this country. I very much hope that Switzerland will also succeed in reducing the exorbitantly high customs tariffs currently demanded by the Americans.
Well, the landmark trial of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro entered its final phase as the Supreme Court began hearing closing arguments. A lawyer for Bolsonaro said on Tuesday the trial session ended as expected after the first day of the first stage of trial. Another member of Bolsonaro's defense team, attorney Paulo Canha, said the former president will not attend tomorrow's session due to his health condition. This year, Bolsonaro has cancelled a series of public events due to his health issues. The former president was hospitalized for 3 weeks in April due to abdominal surgery to treat an intestinal obstruction. Meanwhile, Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva said that he expects justice to be served. Lula also spoke about the role of Donald Trump in the case, which he called meddling in another country's justice system. Trump has cited the cause as the primary justification for imposing 50% tariffs on many Brazilian goods and cancelling the U.S. visas of most Brazilian Supreme Court judges. And Peruvian authorities promised a comprehensive investigation into the killing of the Indonesian diplomat Zetro Leonardo Parba in Lima, who was fatally shot 3 times by an unknown assailant while riding his bike home on Monday. Indonesian Foreign Minister Sugiono said that he had spoken with his Peruvian counterpart, urging a thorough investigation into Parba's death. Peru's foreign ministry expressed deep regret over the assassination and pledged to take all necessary measures to determine the facts. It also said that police protection for the Indonesian embassy staff and premises in Lima will be increased too. And Thailand's acting Prime Minister has moved to dissolve parliament after the largest opposition party backed a rival candidate to lead the country. According to the Thai constitution, if the king approves the dissolution of parliament, an election must take place between 45 and 60 days later. Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra was ousted by the Constitutional Court last week over her handling of the border row with Cambodia. Her few Thai parties still governing in a caretaker capacity had courted the power-broking opposition People's Party to back its own new candidate for Prime Minister. But the People's Party declared its support for conservative tycoon Anutin Charnvirakul instead. And still to come in DD India News. Nepal increases the cost permit to climb Mount Everest by about 1/3. Hawaii's Kilauea volcano erupts again. And we'll give you weather updates from parts of India.
स्वागत आहे टू मैग्नेटिक महाराष्ट्र. Share in the richness of Maharashtra as one family united by the collective vision of building a better tomorrow.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lepakshi Kuran, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Singapore's Prime Minister Lawrence Wong is on a 3-day India visit to hold bilateral ties with Prime Minister Modi. Issues of mutual interest on agenda of discussion. Rescuers battle to reach survivors in quake-hit Afghanistan as death toll reaches 1,400. Humanitarian aid pours in. India continues to extend support. Multiple attacks in Pakistan leaves at least 25 dead, including 11 at political rally. Investigation underway. US military sends a clear message to Maduro and Venezuela against drug cartels. Kills 11 people in a strike since recent deployment of warships to the southern Caribbean. And moving on, in Pakistan, over a dozen people were killed in 3 attacks on Tuesday, including 14 who died after a suicide bomber targeted a political rally in the southwestern province of Balochistan. Dozens of people were wounded in that explosion, which took place in the parking lot of a stadium in the provincial capital, Quetta, where hundreds of members of the Balochistan National Party had gathered. Well, the government officials said the rally was held to commemorate the anniversary of the death of Sardar Ataullah Mingal, a nationalist leader and former provincial chief minister. The official said that Mingal's son, Sardar Akhtar Mingal, who was in attendance, is safe, adding that another 30 people were injured. Well, another attack in Balochistan near the border with Iran claimed 5 lives on Tuesday, while 6 soldiers were killed after a suicide attack on their base in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. The regional police chief said that the suicide bomber rammed his explosive-laden car into the boundary wall of the base in the town of Bannu early on Tuesday, causing an explosion that allowed other attackers to enter the compound. A police statement blamed the attack on Islamist militants without naming any group. And the death toll soared past 1,400 people, with thousands more injured in the strong earthquake that hit Afghanistan as rescuers battled to reach survivors trapped in remote areas. Aid agencies had made their way on foot in some places, and helicopters were being used to airlift the injured. The 6.0 magnitude tremor struck a remote mountainous area in eastern Afghanistan along the Pakistan border on Sunday, according to the US Geological Survey. Its epicenter was 17 miles from the eastern city of Jalalabad at a shallow depth of 5 miles, at which even relatively moderate earthquakes can cause widespread damage. Afghanistan is especially vulnerable to earthquakes as it sits on top of several fault lines where the Indian and Eurasian plates meet. And in response to the devastating earthquake in Afghanistan, India continues to extend its support. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar shared some photographs on social media platform X as India sent 21 tons of humanitarian assistance to quake-hit country. The consignment included a wide range of relief materials, including basic necessities. The minister added that India would continue to monitor the situation and provide more assistance in the coming days. Well, India had previously extended humanitarian aid to Afghanistan on Monday, including relief materials. While on Monday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also extended his grief over the loss of lives in the natural calamity and said that India stands ready to provide all possible humanitarian aid to those affected by the quake in Afghanistan. On Tuesday, the Sikh community dispatched relief material for earthquake victims from Gurudwara Guru Nanak Darbar in Afghanistan's Jalalabad. Donated by the Gurudwara Committee, the relief material has been sent to Kunar, the worst hit province where over 1,000 people died. Well, Nepal has implemented a new rate for permit for the ascent to Mount Everest starting 1st of September. Royalty fee for foreigners climbing Everest from the south route in the popular spring session, which is from March to May, has now risen from 11,000 to 15,000 USD. In the autumn season, from September to November, the fee has been increased to 7,500 USD per person from 5,500 USD. In unfavorable weather time like winter and monsoon, the fee would be 3,750 USD per person. The new rules also include other provisions like reduction in permit validity to 55 days. A new rule mandates that every 2 climbers attending a mountain above 8,000 meters must hire one guide. Permit fees for other mountains have also been increased since 1953, marking the first climb to Mount Everest by Sir Edmund Hillary of New Zealand and Tenzing Norgay, a Sherpa from Nepal. More than 7,200 individuals have summited Mount Everest. The revenue generated annually from Mount Everest ascents, specifically from permit fees, is a significant source of income for Nepal's government. And some weather updates from parts of India. Moderate to intense rainfall is likely over Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh and Odisha. Orange to red alert zones have been created with light to moderate showers expected over yellow alert areas during night time. Among the northern Indian states, the hilly regions of Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand are likely to receive moderate showers with isolated areas facing severe rainfall. The next 24 hours remain critical as the IMD has issued a flood alert, warning a moderate to high risk of flash floods across parts of Uttarakhand, Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh and Himachal Pradesh. According to the latest report from the Indian Meteorological Department, stations across Jammu and Kashmir are recording heavy to very heavy rainfall. Riyasi district alone has received 168.5 mm so far. Delhi and surrounding regions have remained cloudy with light to moderate rain expected. Residents in flood-prone zones advised to stay alert. The monsoon remains active and IMD has issued warnings for several regions to prepare for possible disruptions. Meanwhile, Northern Railway has cancelled 68 trains to and from Jammu and Kashmir till September 30th, with 24 services set to resume. And now let's take you live to Yashobhoomi to Semicon India 2025, which is being held in New Delhi and where Prime Minister right now is visiting the exhibition, exhibited by at least 350 exhibitors. These are the live visuals coming in from Semicon exhibition, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is making a visit. Semicon 2025 is the 4th edition, is a landmark event for India's push towards becoming a global hub in semiconductors, manufacturing and innovation as well, a sector that is set to define the future of technology and economic growth. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visiting the exhibition and talking and understanding the exhibitors right now. A Semicon exhibition, a global platform that is showcasing the latest innovations in the semiconductor industry. This exhibition is particularly significant as India is positioning itself to emerge as a key player in the global chip-making ecosystem as well. And with the world facing chip shortages in recent years, India's push in this sector is not just about technology, but also about self-reliance, economic growth, and creating lakhs of jobs and creating Atmanirbhar Bharat, which Prime Minister yesterday, while inaugurating Semicon, mentioned very vividly. Semicon 2025 underlines the government's commitment to make India a hub or semiconductor design, form and manufacturing, and the exhibition brings together top global companies, policymakers and innovators, all looking at India's potential as a rising semiconductor powerhouse. Prime Minister Narendra Modi up on your screens visiting the Semicon India 2025 exhibition showcases India's strides in semiconductor manufacturing, innovation and technology leadership. Semicon 2025 highlights India's vision of becoming a global hub for electronics and chip design under the Make in India and Digital India initiatives particularly. The flagship event reaffirms India's ambition to become a global semiconductor powerhouse, and yesterday Prime Minister inaugurated the 4th edition of Semicon India 2025 at Yashobhoomi in New Delhi. Semicon India 2025 has brought together global leaders, industry experts, academia, government officials and students under the theme Building the Next Semiconductor Powerhouse, bringing unprecedented exponential growth. Semicon 2025 is also graced by over 20,000 attendees, comprising more than 2,500 delegates from 48 countries. Semicon 2025 will also feature diverse activities, including roundtable discussions with 6 countries, country-specific pavilions, specialized pavilions for workforce development and startups. And it will highlight initiatives under the Design-Linked Incentive Scheme, spotlight the thriving startup ecosystem, fostering international cooperation and outlining the future roadmap for India's semiconductor industry. Prime Minister yesterday, in fact, in his inaugural address at Semicon 2025, mentioned that the combination of experts and youth at the gathering was a clear message to the world that the world believes in India. And for more on Semicon 2025 and Prime Minister visiting the exhibition right now, we have our correspondent with us, Akshay Dongre. Well, Akshay, tell us the main important features of the exhibition Prime Minister is visiting right now.
Well, one of the most important things is the kind of focus that Prime Minister is giving to the semicon industry. Semiconductors, as we have been talking about for several years now, and in fact the entire decade has been more or less about chips, semiconductors, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, other kind of advanced manufacturing techniques that are required for semiconductors, and semiconductors are required for all these kind of activities when it comes to cutting edge technology in today's digital infrastructure. So Prime Minister's focus is quite apt on the semiconductor industry. Yesterday he visited Yashobhoomi, where he interacted with the industry leaders. And in fact, something that was quite different yesterday was the fact that Deepika, Prime Minister came even before the dignitaries. He sat there, he listened to the the national as well as international semiconductor players. He interacted with them. He during his speech he responded to the things that were said by the investors, by the business leaders in the semicon industry. So Prime Minister has publicly many times stated that he has always had keen interest in technology, and when it comes to semiconductors, these are essentially the building blocks of today's digital infrastructure. So it becomes quite essential for any nation to have a robust, any nation like India or any major economy in the world, they need to have some sort of reliant, supply chain for semiconductors. We have seen that because of disruption, because of conflict, this particular supply chain of semiconductors has been disturbed, which has caused a lot of financial pressure on economies, on industries, and that is something that India, as one of the world's fastest growing economies, cannot pay a price, cannot afford as far as these kind of disruptions are concerned. Clearly, Prime Minister's focus is to invite the world's leading semiconductor industries to India, to set up manufacturing plants, to do research and development, to do all kind of things that are required by providing everything that they require. Prime Minister has repeatedly said yesterday that anything that is required by the semicon industry will be provided. That includes the political support by the local government to rules and regulation and reduction of paperwork that is being done through various initiatives that have been launched by the government of India. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi is during the exhibition today. This is the second consecutive day, and reminding our viewers that just day before yesterday, Prime Minister was in China, so he just landed in India. The next day, he came here at Yashobhumi to give a speech to the industry leaders of semiconductor industry, and now today he's visiting the stalls personally and interacting with these semicon leaders here who are present at Yashobhumi. Back to you, Deepika.
Right, Akshay, in fact, we are showing live visuals to our viewers right now coming in from the Semicon exhibition. Prime Minister is visiting the exhibition and we're getting you the shots from there. In fact, Akshay, so many dignitaries with 20,000 attendees and 2,500 delegates from 48 countries attending the Semicon 2025. In fact, if you talk about the exhibitors, it's being said that there are over 350 exhibitors at Semicon 2025 and Prime Minister himself inaugurated it every year. So tell us the significance and most importantly, the importance of Semicon 2025 for India's technological roadmap.
Well, we are, it can be explained in a manner that we are at a cusp of digital transformation. However, this digital transformation cannot happen. It's just not possible without the cutting-edge semiconductors that are made around the world. We have seen that just exactly a year back, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Singapore. He visited a semiconductor factory. He visited the AEM holdings in Singapore, where Prime Minister, along with the Prime Minister of Singapore, visited. There he saw the infrastructure in the countries that are leading players in semicon industry, including Taiwan, including Singapore. There is China and other countries as well that have taken lead in the semicon industry. And PM acknowledged that. To course correct, the first thing is to accept any kind of lapses. And PM said that India has taken off in this journey, taken off in this race of semiconductors slightly late, but with the concerted efforts of all the people in the government as well as in the industry leaders, along with the entire ecosystem, will push the semicon industry to perform and to multiply at a much faster rate than it has happened in other countries like China. So clearly, what we are seeing right now is PM's push to strengthen the semiconductor industry, because it's not just India that requires it. India can be a leading exporter of these technologies of semiconductors. There are different kind of semiconductors. Many components of these semiconductors are not even visible to naked eye. You have to use equipment like magnifying glass to essentially find out the kind of complicalities and complexities of a semiconductor, especially given the fact that up to 2.5 millimeter of semiconductors are being made that have quite a heavy computational capability. So semiconductors are essentially digital diamonds, as Prime Minister said it. He talked about the black gold that he referred to the oil and fossil fuel industry, and in today's world he talked about digital diamonds that are semiconductors. So no country can actually become great as far as technology is concerned without semiconductors, because these are the essentially building blocks of any kind of technology in today's present world. Back to you, Pegula.
Right, Akshay, we can see the Prime Minister interacting with the various delegates, understanding, looking at the chips out there. In fact, yesterday in his speech, Prime Minister said that the smallest made in India chip will drive the biggest change.
Well, absolutely. That's the thing in semiconductor industry. The smaller the chip, the more useful it is. With the smaller the chip, the more equipment that it can be can be used by that particular chip, essentially in a way that today we are wearing smartwatches. Today people have, the equipments are getting smaller and smaller, more handy. The companies that are manufacturing these kind of cutting edge telephones, mobile phones, smartphones, smartwatches, smart earbuds, and every kind of technology rather, Deepika, is looking at the smallest of the semiconductors to fit them and provide maximum yield and maximum computational power to the device. So it's a race that who can build the smallest of the chips. Now, we have made a lot of progress in the past decade in that area. We are headed towards the right direction. However, the thing that Prime Minister said is absolutely true. The smallest of the chips are the most valued, and the smallest of the chips, if made in India, can drive the biggest of change. India has showed it. Its humanitarian nature during events like COVID, where Prime Minister and the entire country very generously, despite having its own problems and its own battles with COVID, gave out those vaccines to the rest of the world with the program of vaccine mastery that was started to help the global south and other countries that were in need. Similarly, in semiconductor industry, if India makes huge strides, then the entire global south has to gain a lot, not just in terms of expertise, but they can also buy the chips that are made in India, and with all of the efforts that are going on at a relatively cheaper price. So it's just there is a saying that there are years when nothing happens, and there are days when years happen. So it's just one innovation. We are just one innovation away from a massive shift and massive transformation in our technological hemisphere. So any kind of major breakthrough in semiconductor industry vis-a-vis the technology that is being used can in fact drive a major change and can in fact transform the entire the digital landscape of India. So, but that can only happen if the government supports the industry, if the industry is supported by the people, if the people are supported by the industry. So it's an entire ecosystem, it's a chain that how the entire country, along with its industries, along with its businesses, entrepreneurs, to its public and political leadership come together to achieve a mission, and that is what seems to be happening in the Semicon 2025.
Yeah, Akshay, in fact, you said that we are very near massive transformation. If you could tell that which are the new policies or incentives at the event to attract investment where India is showcasing. In fact, what are the key highlights of India's pavilion at display in Semicon 2025?
Well, looking at looking at the place where India finds itself as far as the Semicon industry is concerned, and then the biggest thing that we have to offer is a huge market. We are a country of we are the largest democracy, largest country rather now in terms of population, and there is a lot of demand that is coming in internally, domestically as well for these semiconductors. So the companies that want to invest in India also want to invest in India, given the fact that if they make the semiconductors here, it becomes easier for them to supply to the Indian market. Second thing, there is a lot of enthusiasm toward tech and gear. You can go to the remotest and the farthest village in India and you will find a smartphone there. So there is a lot of demand that has to be fulfilled, and semiconductors are essential part of these gadgets. So the demand for semiconductors will also rise. Third thing, it's political stability. All of these countries, all of these investors rather, who want to come to the country or want to go to any other nation, invest billions of their dollars, invest a lot of their cutting-edge technology equipment, they need a couple of things. One is the political stability. How politically stable a nation is, and that also reflects on the kind of investment that comes in, because nobody wants to get that investment taken away just like that. So it's quite essential to see, it's rather important to see that how political stability has been demonstrated by the government, and that's perhaps the reason a lot of industry leaders are just waiting to invest more and more in India to provide the market with the kind of chips that we require. So fourth point also, Deepika, would be manufacturing capability, resources, especially the human resources. We have a lot of skilled labor that can be diverted towards semiconductor manufacturing, resulting in rather cheaper semiconductor chips that can be quite competitive at the world stage. So it's like India's Mangalyaan mission. You know, there are areas where, if with expertise and with a lot of concerted effort and focus, the government as well as the leadership at the entrepreneurial level want to get something achieved, they might as well do it.
Right, Akshay, if you talk about Viksit Bharat, the dream of Viksit Bharat, how critical is this sector for India's dream of becoming, in fact, a $5 trillion Indian economy?
Well, it seems that semiconductors would rather, I would place them in the dream of Viksit Bharat by 2047, or a second largest economy in the world, perhaps. So semiconductor is a long investment. It's a long-term investment. So the result, while it will start coming very soon, but the results will keep on continuing and will keep on amplifying for decades to come from the kind of investment that is happening right now. Because semiconductor is something that will be required by you, that will be needed by you, that will remain there as a important tool as to till the time technology is required by humankind. So there is no technology at this point in time without these chips, without these semiconductors. So to reach any kind of feat when it comes to global economies, you need to have a strong base, strong supply network of these chips, these black diamonds that are essentially the building blocks of modern technology as we know it.
Right. Akshay, in fact, the Prime Minister yesterday said that Bharat is working towards the challenges being faced by the semiconductor industry. So what message, if you talk about the message India is sending to the world by hosting and participating at this grand scale?
Well, the government is clearly sending one message that you are welcome to India. You can come and rest here. The government of India is there to support you. The industry is thriving. There is, your investment is safe. There is political stability. There is not any political chaos. You have a stable government at the center. You have a good relation between the states. And all the states are hungry for more and more investment. So that is also going to be quite a huge attraction for a lot of semiconductor industry leaders. So as far as the challenges are concerned, yes, there have been challenges, but with Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself spending hours interacting with not just the big semiconductor units, but also the startups. So that shows the kind of seriousness that India is looking at semiconductors for the growth of the country.
Right. Akshay, also, how will the domestic electronics and automotive industries benefit from this push?
Well, every industry, Deepika. In fact, automobile parts also have semiconductors now. You have these infotainment systems that are there in your car. You have, seatbelt warning systems to honks, to all of the other things. Everything has semiconductors. Everything has chips. And the core of the processing unit of the car nowadays, especially the electronic vehicles, cannot survive without semiconductors. So the kind of push that it is getting, eventually it will pass on. It will trickle down to all the industries that are concerned with the semiconductor, or rather are impacted by the semiconductor industry.
In fact, Prime Minister right now is at the exhibition. We are showing you visuals from Semicon 2025. The Prime Minister is visiting the various exhibitors, and our correspondent Akshay Dongre is with us. In fact, Akshay, yesterday Prime Minister said that Bharat's youth is the most important human capital for semiconductors, and he said the government was working towards giving a new impetus to design-linked incentive scheme, making long-term commitments. And the day, he said, is not far when the whole world will say design in India and made in India, and the whole world will trust India.
Well, the whole world, I would say, trusts India already. We have the capabilities. We have proved our mettle in several other industries. When it comes to semiconductors, it is as essential as any other mission that India has gone on, be it the space missions, be it the other kind of social issues that Prime Minister has taken. Semiconductor is yet of different leagues, but when it comes to importance, it is of immense importance. So the entire country is right now positive, quite optimistic about the kind of investment and the kind of personal enthusiasm as well as curiosity that even the Prime Minister has. Because the leaders that would want to invest in India, especially something as important as semiconductors, that is the driving factor of the 21st century. The Prime Minister's focus is quite clearly a very thing that is creating a lot of enthusiasm among the industry leaders, because they also are seeing that if the Prime Minister is so interested, that means that the entire country is also interested in the semicon industry, and that increases the scope and chances of these industries coming and investing in India, making in India, building, researching and manufacturing India for Indians and the rest of the world as well.
Yeah, Akshay, as the Prime Minister yesterday said, that the way Bharat was moving, it is going to be a major part of the semiconductor market. And with over $18 billion in investment and initiatives like the National Single Window System and Design-Linked Incentive Scheme, India is totally ready in becoming a full-scale semiconductor nation.
Well, absolutely. And it is essential that we become it because, we are already at the quarter of this century. The century will be driven by technology, and to have this kind of a manufacturing base, you also have to see the system should be simpler for the investors, because it's still easier for Indians to make their way through the kind of bureaucratic paperwork that is required to launch something of this magnitude. But for many people, it's not the way it works in their home countries. Simply also because India's population is much larger than any other country in the world. So that comes with its own set of the checks and balances that are required in the Indian system. But the government is serious about this matter, and the single window systems and the reduction in paperwork was highlighted by the Prime Minister, who said that he believes that the semicon market is about $600 billion at the global level, and it is soon going to become, or rather touch $1 trillion mark. So that is going to be massive. However, also equally important would be to ensure that the investors that are coming in India do not go back with a bad experience. You have to create a sort of a trust factor so that the industry brings more industry to the country and not drive it back. So all of these reduction in paperwork is quite essential, and that also enhances India's ease of doing business.
Right. Akshay, you were there at the exhibition. In fact, how optimistic are the global companies and foreign delegations about the semiconductor future with India?
Well, they are quite interested. They are quite excited about it, and that perhaps is the reason why you have hundreds of exhibitors here from about 50 countries who are here for days, and they will be looking at all the opportunities and arenas where the semicon market can in fact do relatively well. The manufacturing base, the research, the production, the export, the import, all of these things have to be figured out. But first of all, the companies, while they have started to invest in India and started to collab with the Indian tech partners, but we are still a long way to go from becoming a full-fledged semiconductor nation. However, that is the goal, and in the next few years, with the kind of enthusiasm that we are seeing, it will be achieved sooner than later.
Right, Akshay, as we know that Semicon India 2025 is seeing participation from over 48 countries, and there are many country-specific pavilions as well. What insights or outcomes are emerging from these discussions in terms of global collaboration, as you were also mentioning earlier?
Can you repeat that question, Lipakshi?
Right, Akshay, I'm saying that Semicon India 2025, in fact, as we know, has participation from over 48 countries, and country-specific pavilions are there, of course. What insights or outcomes are emerging from these discussions in terms of global collaboration, as you were also mentioning, Akshay, earlier?
The Semicon India will go on till 4th of September. So the outcomes, we'll have to wait slightly more for the outcomes, but we can, judge or rather interpret the outcome, presume the outcome by looking at the experience of last year. Then the exhibitors came here, many of them stayed, many of them invested, and that perhaps is the reason why the number has grown than reduced. Because while there are new players in the market, they are also looking at countries that are not saturated as far as the semicon growth is concerned. Because for countries like Singapore or in the Southeast Asia, the saturation is starting to hit. So the raw talent is there is a dearth of talented workforce. There is a dearth of also the human capital, and that is also driving the cost quite high of these magical instruments. I would call it. I would call them because they are quite small. However, the kind of processing power that they have nowadays, it's just astonishing.
Right, Akshay, in fact, Union Information and Broadcasting Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw yesterday presented India's first indigenously developed Vikram 32-bit chip to the Prime Minister at the inauguration of the Semicon India 2025 conference. Could you tell us more about that?
Well, yes, the Vikram chip was made by DRDO. It is perhaps one of the most bright example of how India is a serious player in semicon industry, and it has the potential to grow leaps and bounds. So there is also a historical connection attached to it. But more than that, in today's sense, it was sort of a memento that was given by the minister to Prime Minister to sort of remind also the world that we possess the capability and we possess the enthusiasm for these semiconductors, and in the near future, India will be a major semicon nation, full stack, not the kind of semicon progress we have been seeing in the last decade, but at least in this decade, what we are seeing is quite a rapid pace as far as establishing contacts and establishing industry of the semiconductors are concerned.
Right, Akshay, in fact, to tell our viewers, we will tell our viewers again that Prime Minister is right now visiting the exhibition of Semicon 2025. Over 350 exhibitors are right there at the exhibition, and Prime Minister is trying to interact with them, understanding the various things and motivating all of them. In fact, also to tell our viewers, Akshay, the Vikram 32 chip, as you also mentioned, is built on a 32-bit architecture, which allows it to process larger amounts of data more efficiently, which yesterday Union Information Broadcasting Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw presented to the Prime Minister. Also, Akshay, calling semiconductors the digital diamonds of the modern era, Prime Minister Modi yesterday said that oil was black gold, but semiconductor chips are digital diamonds.
Well, absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier, Lipakshi, that the situation when it comes to the tech industry concerned, the semiconductors are really looked at like diamonds. If you look at the kind of modern semiconductors that are there, that are more sought after, they're as so small that you can't really figure out what it is at the first look of it. But they are quite efficient. They are quite powerful when it comes to the processing power, the progress that it has. So they are essentially digital diamonds. Perhaps many of them would cost more than a diamond. So the reason for that is the kind of technology that has gone into it, the kind of efforts that have gone into it, into the manufacturing and research of them. So it's not an easy task. It's quite a complicated industry, quite a complex rather industry, and expertise is required at each and every step. Research and development, along with supply chain network, along with political will, along with several other factors that are connected are directly connected with the semicon industry, and that's perhaps the reason why they are called the Black Diamond.
In fact, Akshay, huge investments by the government happening there. In fact, at the conference also the government announced that it has approved investments worth 1.6 lakh crore rupees across 10 major projects in 6 states. And the construction of the 5 new semiconductor units has already begun.
Well, yes, the production has begun. As far as the industry is concerned, what we have seen today is quite impressive. Tracking to see the videos is trying to understand, the news as well, understand what does it require for India to become a manufacturing hub for these digital diamonds, and perhaps the entire government machinery will now focus on how and how best they can provide support to the government when it comes to the government. It means that the kind of government and industry collaboration that is required to take giant leaps as far as the semicon market is concerned, as well as the industry as a whole that is looking at India.
Right. Akshay, there seems to be an audio glitch in your voice right now. We'll try and connect with Akshay in a while. In fact, we are showing you the visuals of Prime Minister attending the Semicon exhibition 2025. The Prime Minister is there trying to interact with all the exhibitors, understanding and motivating them. This is a landmark event for India's push towards becoming global hub in semiconductor manufacturing and innovation, in a sector that is set to define the future of technology and economic growth. In fact, yesterday, while inaugurating the Semicon 2025, Prime Minister himself said that he was very, very keen on technology, and that is what brings him to this, his interest in the exhibition and Semicon 2025. He said that this gathering is a combination of experts and youth, and the message is clear that the world believes in India. In fact, he also said that the world was ready to build a semiconductor future with India. Prime Minister also said that at the point where the world is going through so many problems, that in this era of geopolitical tensions, India has yet achieved 7.8% growth, moving towards becoming the 3rd largest economy. And he said that in the world of semiconductors, oil is black gold, but chips are digital diamonds. In fact, he also said that those small, but the chips have the strength to give impetus to world's growth. And Prime Minister Modi also said that the way Bharat was moving, it is going to be a major part of semiconductor market, as more than $18 billion were being invested in it. And Prime Minister Modi also yesterday said that the government has launched a national single window system, which has been implemented, making it easier to work and offering end-to-end capability, increasing investments, moving towards becoming full-scale semiconductor nation in its journey to Atmanirbhar Bharat in 2047. Prime Minister Modi yesterday also said that though our journey started late, there is no stopping now. And he said that the commercial chips will also start this year, showing India's exponential growth. And right up on your screens, Prime Minister visiting the exhibition, interacting with the exhibitors, motivating them, and understanding the whole exhibitions. Prime Minister also said that commercial chips will start this year, showing India's exponential growth. And he said that we are making an ecosystem which will have everything from designing to high-tech device making, all available in India. Prime Minister, in fact, yesterday mentioned categorically that we are moving fast towards Atmanirbhar Bharat. He said that Bharat is also working towards the challenges being faced by the semiconductor industry. And he specifically also mentioned about the youth of the nation. He said that Bharat's youth is the most important human capital for semiconductors. For any nation, the youth are very, very important, and Prime Minister categorically mentioned it yesterday. He said that the government was working towards giving a new impetus to design-linked incentive scheme, also making long-term commitments. And he said that the day is not far when the whole world will say design in India and made in India. Semicon 2025, in fact, is a global platform that showcases the latest innovation in the semiconductor industry. And this exhibition is particularly significant as India is positioning itself to emerge as a key player in the global chip-making ecosystem. Also, at the moment, with the world facing chip shortages in recent years, India's push in this sector is not just about technology, but also about self-reliance, economic growth, and creating lakhs of jobs as well. In fact, Prime Minister's presence at the exhibition underlines the government's commitment to make India a hub for semiconductor design and manufacturing, and the exhibition brings together top global companies, policymakers and innovators, all looking at India's potential as a rising semiconductor powerhouse. The three-day conference, witnessing participants from over 48 countries, over 150 speakers, including over 50 global leaders and more than 350 exhibitors. And today is day 2. The initiative focuses on advancing a robust, resilient and sustainable semiconductor ecosystem in India. In fact, Semicon 2025 will also feature sessions on the progress of the Semicon India program, semiconductor fab and advanced packaging projects, infrastructure readiness, smart manufacturing, innovations in R&D and artificial intelligence, investment opportunities as well, state-level policy implementation, among others. In fact, yesterday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi received India's first indigenous semiconductor chip at the inauguration of Semicon India 2025 in New Delhi at Yashobhoomi. And Prime Minister said that the global semiconductor market is projected to cross $1 trillion in the coming years. And with the speed at which India is advancing, the country will secure a significant share of this market. Also, to tell you about the chip which was given to the Prime Minister yesterday by the Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw. It is a chip of the modern era, and it's and the chip Vikram 32, which was handed over to the Prime Minister, and it allows to process larger amounts of data more efficiently. In fact, the Vikram 32 officially is called the Vikram 3201. It is the first fully indigenous 32-bit microprocessor qualified specially for the space missions and is built by the ISRO team, the Indian Space Research Organization Semiconductor Laboratory in Chandigarh, specifically to withstand the extreme conditions of the rocket launches and space environments, giving a major impetus to our space program as well. In fact, we tell you about the origin of the chip, which was given to the Prime Minister yesterday. The Vikram 32 chip was designed by the Vikram Sarabhai Space Centre and fabricated at SCL's Mohali, Punjab, and it is the successor to Vikram 1601 chip microprocessor that also was powered by ISRO's launch vehicle since 2009. Although the Vikram 32 has been built primarily for satellites and rockets for our space program, its rugged design makes it suitable for other critical areas as well. And potential applications include the defense system, aerospace technologies, advanced automotive solutions, and high reliability energy systems. In fact, to tell our viewers that the development of Vikram 32 is a major achievement under the India Semiconductor Mission launched in 2021 and the design-linked incentive scheme, which the Prime Minister also mentioned yesterday. And it cuts India's dependence on imported microchips and is a big step towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, that is self-reliant India. We're getting you visuals from the exhibition at Semicon 2025, which Prime Minister is visiting right now, interacting with the various dignitaries, the delegates, understanding the various chips, motivating the various exhibitors. And Semicon India 2025 conference is a 3-day event that focuses on building a strong and resilient semiconductor ecosystem in the country. In fact, to tell our viewers that the 3-day event will include sessions on chip fabrication, especially consisting of artificial intelligence, advanced packaging, research and development, investment opportunities, and state-level policies. In fact, yesterday at the conference, the government announced that it has approved investments worth 1.6 lakh crore rupees across 10 major projects in 6 states. And the construction of 5 new semiconductor units has already begun. Also, most importantly, the government is supporting more than 23 designed startups under the DLI scheme. The DLI scheme, as we told you, is design-linked incentive scheme launched in 2021. For the viewers who are joining us right now, we are showing you visuals of Prime Minister Narendra Modi visiting the exhibition at Semicon 2025, the 4th edition. Yesterday, Prime Minister Modi inaugurated the 3-day flagship semiconductor event at Yashobhoomi in Delhi. In fact, the 3-day conference from September 2nd till the 4th will focus on advancing a robust, resilient and sustainable semiconductor ecosystem in India. And it will also feature sessions on the progress of the Semicon India program, Semiconductor Fab, and advanced packaging products and projects, infrastructure readiness, smart manufacturing, innovations in R&D and artificial intelligence, investment opportunities, state-level policy implementation, which also the Prime Minister mentioned categorically, and other topics as well. The event is also highlighting initiatives under the Design-Linked Incentive Scheme, the growth of the startup ecosystem, international cooperation, collaboration, and the future roadmap for India's semiconductor sector. We may also tell you that over 20,750 attendees are expected to are participating, including more than 2,500 delegates from 48 countries, and there are over 150 speakers, including 50 global leaders. And as far as the exhibition is concerned, there are more than 350 exhibitors exhibiting their country-related semiconductors. There are also dedicated pavilions for workforce development and startups, among others. And Prime Minister yesterday gave a major impetus to the youth of the country also. All right, you were watching visuals from Semicon 2025, where Prime Minister was attending the exhibition of exhibition, and the three-day event is being held from 2nd to the 4th of 2025. In fact, over 20,750 attendees are expected to participate in the exhibition, and including more than 2,500 delegates from 48 countries, over 150 speakers, including 50 global leaders. In fact, Semicon conferences organized around the world, across the world, and they aim to maximize the outreach of technological advancements in the semiconductor domain, especially as well as the policies of various countries to strengthen their semiconductor ecosystems. In fact, Semicon 2025 is furthering the Prime Minister's vision to showcase India as a hub for semiconductor design, manufacturing and technological development. And now we're getting you visuals from Rajghat, where Singapore's Prime Minister Lawrence Wong is paying his tributes. Close ties between India and Singapore have a history rooted in strong commercial, cultural and people-to-people links across a millennium. Singapore is India's largest trade partner in ASEAN, and it is the leading source of FDI with flows of 14.94 billion USDs. In fact, about 9,000 Indian companies are registered in Singapore, and people of Indian origin constitute 9% of 4.04 million resident population of Singapore. Singapore also hosts 1.64 million foreigners, including Indian citizens. Singapore's Prime Minister Lawrence Wong at Rajghat paying his respect to the father of the nation. He laid a wreath there. And he's on an India visit to hold bilateral talks. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.
This week on Defense Dynamics, India's tank force takes on the drone challenge. How counter unmanned aerial systems are rewriting armored warfare. A major milestone in Indian air power by the induction of Tejas Mark II matters. And on the robotics front, what is Bhairav's robotics Rakshak and why it could redefine battlefield autonomy? This Wednesday at 8 p.m. only on DD India.
Welcome to DD India, where a billion voices unite, connecting viewers to the stories that matter. India is not just another news channel. It's the international channel that puts the spotlight on the global south, bringing you stories from the heart of emerging economies, dynamic cultures and transformative voices. As the international news channel of India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati, DD India delivers high-quality content from every corner of the globe, focusing on the stories that shape our future. We don't just report news. We connect you to India's voice in the global narrative. From current affairs to culture, from economic growth to sustainable development, and the ever-evolving world order, DD India gives you a comprehensive view of the world around us. Stay connected, stay informed, and embrace the stories that shape our lives. DD India, India's voice to the world. Namaskar and welcome to the Economic Brief, your weekly program on matters related to the economy but from an Indian point of view of the world. On the program, Fitch maintains India's investment grade rating but cautions against the impact of Trump tariffs. Well, with parcels costing up to $200 more each to send to the US, most countries have stopped sending their mail there. Prime Minister Narendra Modi calls for self-reliance as India's businesses gear up for market diversification.